Greetings and welcome to the latest edition of the Jacksonville Buzz. I am your host, Adrienne Houghton. Joining me in the studio today is Dr. Kalpana Sundar, and we're going to talk about how to navigate with clarity. Good morning. It's so good to see you again.
So great to see you. Great to be here.
So what we're actually talking about, and when you say navigate with clarity, that's really your mantra at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And so we're going to talk about investing in yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yes, that's what we want to talk about.
Because you've gone through a number of different changes in your life.
Yes.
So tell me about your journey.
It's been quite a journey, I will say. So as we know, I've been on this show before, and I've been here as an ear, nose, and throat physician. I have done med spa segments as well, skincare segments, and it's funny how we just keep evolving. And I've always been this person with many interests, and I think what I do in my life somehow always reflects where I am in my life. So what that means is when I was an ear, nose, and throat physician, it was really the perfect thing for me at the time. I was in a stationary place. I was in an office. I was raising my children. All that seemed to work out perfectly to give me the steadiness that life needed at that point.
Sure.
Then as my children got older, I started getting more into the aesthetics. And I mean, I'd been doing it the whole time, but I became more heavily involved in that with the skincare line, then opened up another med spa and whatnot. And then there was this desire to have even more freedom, not to be stuck in some place. And that was when I really changed it up, moved down to South Florida, and then said, you know what, I've always wanted to professionally speak, and I'm turning 53 next week. And I thought, well, this is really the time. And I had a message that I want to share with people because as I gained more clarity, I wanted to be able to help other people navigate their lives with more clarity.
So there's two aspects of this that I find both interesting and a little scary. Firstly is that by reinventing yourself, does that mean that you're not happy with the self that you're currently living with? And if that's so, how do you have the courage to move forward? I mean, that's the main thing. On the other side of it is, do people look at you and think, oh, she's just never settled? So I mean, which way is it?
I think it's all of those.
All of those.
And I think those are such great questions. So first of all, let me start with, shouldn't you just be happy with where you are? And if you want to transform, does it mean that you're not happy? That is something that I've probably thought about my entire life, because even when I was doing ear, nose, and throat, I would always want to do something else. And people would say, aren't you just happy? I mean, this is such a great career. You should be satisfied. And yet I wasn't. So what I think is that's an individual choice for each person. So, for a lot of people, being a physician, having a family, that really may be enough for them. And that's individual. For me, it just wasn't. So what was right for me was to transform. Is transforming scary? Absolutely. Every single time I do it, it makes me unnerved, but it allows me to embrace those fears that I have and move forward in faith and in courage. So maybe I like challenging myself that way. I think I actually do, because every time I transform and reinvent myself, I grow as a human being. I learn things that I never would have learned before, and I enjoy that part of the journey in life.
Yeah.
And then to your last question, do people look at me and ask if I'm ever settled? I would say that the right people understand what I'm doing and the wrong people don't. So then it's really easy to identify who gets to stay in my life and who doesn't.
Exactly. So how can you invest in yourself? I mean, you can reinvent, yes, but you also have to invest in yourself to make sure you're on the right path. What are some of the strategies that you can use?
So there's so many different strategies. And again, I feel like, I'll share what I do, and for each person it's going to be different based on their interests and whatnot. So So for me, at each point in my life, there were different ways that I invested in myself. Obviously, when I ran a business and ear, nose, and throat practice, I invested in myself by going to medical conferences, reading business books, attending business conferences, marketing, blah, blah, blah. Those were all the things that were relevant at that time. Then when I went more into the cosmetics, then it was different conferences, different marketing, different strategies. Skincare led to different things. And I would say that obviously now it's, professional speaking. So it's like a whole nother skill set, whole nother type of business model. I've been speaking for so long that isn't new, but my message is different. So I spend a lot of time thinking and reflecting, which is very different. I was so busy doing before. Now I spend a lot of time just thinking and reflecting, because for me to be able to deliver that message properly, I have to spend that time thinking. And I'm sorry. And then the last thing was also I also like to invest in myself for things that make me happy and joyful too. So I always make sure to take time for travel. Right now I'm working on a black belt in Krav Maga. I used to race cars. So I have to throw a little bit of that in there, or life becomes a little crazy.
How do you fit all of this in to 24 hours in a day? Because it seems to me that, as you said, race cars, martial arts, all these different things. And so, I mean, for me, it's like I can barely manage my day and my hours as it is. So how do you do it?
So I'm really good at multitasking. I knew that from when I was very young. I could do multiple things at one point, at one time. And then I'm very, very organized. So I have a planner in my phone that's color-coded for things that I have to do based on whether they're work-related or self-care related or, anything else. So they're all color-coded. And then I have a written planner that I put additional things in. So I stay very, very focused and organized. And then I really start by making commitments to myself. So each month there may be different commitments. So if I focus on something one month, it may shift the next month. So I get it all in. It may not all be ongoing at the same time. Does that make sense?
No, yes, it does. It does. So if people are curious about how you do this, are you prepared to sort of answer some questions? Because there may be some viewers who say, I'd like to talk to her. I want to know more about how she does that. And if so, how do they find you?
That definitely it's possible. So they can reach me by email at drkalpanasundar@gmail.com or through my website, drkalpanasundar.com. They could reach me through there. I actually do professional coaching now. That was one of the other ways that I invested in myself. So I can actually help women through the process of being more organized and making the most out of their day.
Dr. Kalpana Sundar, it's an absolute pleasure to see you once again, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
And don't forget, if you'd like to know any more information, you can go to Dr. Kalpana Sundar's website, which is drkalpanasundar.com, and iwannabuzz.com. Thank you for watching. Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Jacksonville Buzz. And we're continuing in the second of a series of 3 with Dr. Kalpana Sundar. This time we're talking about self-interest. Welcome again, Dr. Sundar.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me why self-care is important.
Well, self-care is one of these things that I used to think was about having a bubble bath and going to wine nights with my friends. And so I didn't understand the importance. Bottom line is when we take better care of ourselves, we're actually able to give more to the people that we love. We can give more back to society and so many other things.
So it's not a bubble bath and wine with your friends?
No. So shocking to me.
So what demands on women make it more challenging for them to practice self-care?
So society tends to view things with women a little differently sometimes than with men, and we view things differently as well. So because we tend to be a little more of natural caregivers, and this doesn't apply to everybody, so I hate to make generalizations, but most of us, I think most women tend to be caretakers. We take care of our children. Often we're involved in taking care of our aging parents, our friends if they need us and whatnot. So it's kind of a double-edged sword because it makes us great clinicians as far as medicine goes, great nurses, great physicians, great nurse practitioners and whatnot. but it kind of makes it hard for us to keep giving when we don't give ourselves something back in return. So then we put ourselves last and we take care of everybody else. And if there might be a little bit of time at the end of the day, then we take care of ourselves.
So what are some great examples of actually self-care?
Well, depending on what you read, there's a lot more self-care activities than you think, and it doesn't involve just bubble baths and whatnot. So first of all, there's like social self-care where you actually nurture relationships with other people, spouses, children, friends, whatnot. Physical self-care, where you make it a point to be healthy, engage in activities that improve your health and well-being. There's emotional self-care, where you reflect, think about, and process all the emotions that you're having. There's practical self-care, things like making a budget, making sure things are clean, making sure things are organized. Professional self-care, where you're constantly working on your mind and your profession. So there's so many different things that it almost seems hard to fit it all into one lifetime, doesn't it?
Exactly. And are there mentors for this? Are there people that you can go to help you learn self-care? Because I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do, to focus on yourself and to look after yourself, because it's a natural thing, as you mentioned, for women to care for others. Men too, but it's a natural thing. You care for others. You don't care about yourself. You're the last person. So is there someone you can go to, or are there good websites that you can go to look about how do I go about looking after myself?
Well, it's tough because I did actually research that, and there's not really a lot out there. There's definitely, there's a lot of research on what types of self-care and what it involves, but how to really guide someone to that process is definitely a much harder thing. I haven't found a whole lot on that, but I think the first thing to start with is understanding that you are important. So just thinking about ways that you contribute and how wonderful you are, having that self-worth to make yourself a priority, I would say is number one and of paramount importance. And then secondly, there are professional coaches that can help women help them guide them through a process of better self-care. So it's probably a multitude of things that we would need. I think also talking to friends and family members on how they do self-care. The problem is that not a lot of people really are doing probably as much as they need to.
Do you think that there's a bit of a stigma if a woman sort of asks for help almost? Do you think she's looked on as perhaps not capable of doing it? So, oh, you want some help? Oh, it's like you need therapy. You need a life coach. All these things. How can you make somebody understand that they are important and not to worry about what other people think?
Well, that's a lifelong journey in and of itself. It really takes quite a bit of time. I mean, I would say that I'm closer to that than I ever have been, but it's a really difficult thing because there are all those stigmas. If you get help because you need therapy, because maybe you don't feel like you're worth it, or if you need a coach to help you get to a different direction, it feels like you're saying you're not capable.
Sure.
And the reality is that we all are capable, but we are also vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we need help, and we need to embrace that vulnerability. It's something I personally am working on, and I do ask for help.
Yeah.
And this has been a hard thing for me to be able to do. But when I need help, I actually go ask for it. I also see a coach, and I have seen therapists in the past. And I feel that all of those things have helped me get to where I am.
Where you are.
And it's important because now I spend more time in self-care than I ever have. And I feel better than I ever have. And then what happens then? Now I can give back. I'm a better mother. I'm a better friend. I'm a better coach. I'm a better person. So all of that translates into a better effect onto society, really, in general. So for the ones who want to keep giving, maybe if we just look at it in that way, it might help us.
Dr. Sundar, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And keep tuned because we will have part 3 in the Dr. Sundar series coming up soon. Bye for now. Greetings and welcome back to the Jacksonville Buzz. I am your host, Adrienne Houghton. And now we're going to continue in part 3 of the series with Dr. Sundar. And we're talking today about navigating with clarity and how she helps women in medicine. So, good morning once again.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to see you. So, you're basically talking about burnout.
Yes.
What is burnout?
So burnout is something that I experience, which is why I feel so passionate about talking about it to women in medicine. It's when you have this, emotional or physical exhaustion, which leads to decreased work productivity and also a loss of identity.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, terrible.
Is this common with the physicians?
Yes, it's so common, and many times physicians don't even see it coming. You don't even know it's happening to you until it's way far gone.
What do you do?
So I think the big thing is really just understanding and being aware that you're going through a process or heading towards burnout. So it's important to just know where you are, so that at least if you understand where you are, you know where you want to get to, you can create a path. And that's what I help women do in my talks, in my workshops, even through professional coaching.
Now, is that limited to where you are in Florida, or do you travel with that?
I do travel with that. So I actually have one coming up in Europe in March of 2023. So I have been traveling quite a bit, and I expect to be traveling more, which is what I love about it, because it gives me the freedom to travel, experience new places and things, meet new people, which I love.
And what resources are available for women who are experiencing this situation?
So there's quite a bit available. I just don't think that anything is really perfect. So it may be a bunch of different things that we could utilize to help women in medicine. There are some online materials that are provided by the American Medical Association. There are, self-help books. There are people doing podcasts about it. There are talks about it. There's professional coaching towards it. So I feel like there are resources available. They're not easy to find. I would like them to see a little more readily available, easier to find. And I think it will take a multitude of different things for each person.
This almost touches on some of the other things that we've mentioned in this series, which is self-help, self-care, and investing in yourself. Do you think it's possible for women in medicine to have the tips to identify the burnout before they get to that final stage?
Absolutely. There is actually a burnout inventory that one can even take online. So if you just Google burnout inventory, it's there. And there are specific ones for even medicine. And I've actually created my own version of that, because there are some things that the original one did not have. So at least by taking that quiz, you can at least assess where you are. Are you really great, or are you kind of heading there, or were you there a while ago?
Give me some examples.
Just some of the questions on there, I don't remember all of them, but just about, do you wake up every day feeling excited about going to work? When you come home at night, do you feel exhausted, or do you feel invigorated? So those are some of the ones that really resonate with me, because I noticed that when I was practicing medicine, I used to come home exhausted every day. And then I just felt like I'd be doing the same thing, and I couldn't remember what one day was different from the next, and it all just ran together. So that's when I knew I was kind of heading in that direction, and I wish I'd realized it. Also talks about your other relationships, because people don't realize that burnout in the workplace also translates into your personal life, and that's a big one. What is your relationship like with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, family, and whatnot? Yeah. That's a significant impact to a woman's life.
We've mentioned this before, but if people want to talk to you about this, how do they find you?
Well, you can take a look on my website, drkalpanasundar.com. And, again, I do offer professional coaching services. I do choose my coaching clients. I limit them just because I want to make sure that I'm actually able to give them what they need. So I limit it to just, a few in a cycle. So typically my programs are about 6 months, because the issues that these women are working through are not simple. They're not a one-time get coached and it's perfect. They take some time.
Dr. Sundar, always a pleasure. And thank you for coming in to talk about these very necessary situations and the strategies that you've created.
Thank you so much for having me.
And don't forget, if you'd like to know any more information, you can go to drkalpanasundar.com or iwannabuzz.com. Thank you for watching.